What is going on, guys? Joey Franzo here with Flex Training Systems, and today we are going to be talking about the title of this video, which is pause squats, pause bench, pause deadlift. I just kind of wanted to go over, um, some of the reasons for why or why not you might want to pause each of these movements, and maybe clear up some confusion. Um, a little while, a couple years ago, I remember pause deadlifts were all the rage. Everybody was doing them, just like the front squat. If things go through phases, they come, they go. So I'm just gonna speak from a powerlifting context as to why we might want to do these movements and why they are not very useful. Um, I do think that pause squats and pause bench are decently valuable, whereas the pause deadlift is not nearly as much. So here we go. I'm gonna break it down. We'll start with squats. Um, so in the pause squat, some reasons as to why you would want to practice pause squatting. One is of course to or a tempo squat is to just build up control, being able to control the weight better. In general, in any power lift, just being able to control the weight is gonna allow you to, inevitably lift more weight. Um, if you lose control at any point with the big weight, obviously, then you can compromise your health. You will probably fail the lift as you may be moving in a plane of motion that you are not used to. Um, you know, if you squat low bar and your hips end up shooting crazy out of the hole, and the bar rolls up to your neck, you're probably gonna fail. So, practicing, you know, time under tension can be mildly useful for that movement. Um, Also, just becoming more aware and finding better position in the hole, like finding your comfortable bottom position is super important. Um, should be below parallel, should be able to do it without too much, wink, too much butt wink, so you're not going to have pain or anything like that with your back. Although, some people, it's just impossible for them to hit depth without having some. Um, there always has to be a trade off. Doing the pause squat can help you kind of find that. I really like tempos because it can help you find your squat basically. Um, so for squats, it can be useful. And if you're one of those people that they squat really fast, I think they're even more valuable. Like meaning you go down and you come up like kind of fast. I think you can control bigger weights much easier, and it can make the difference of like 1 or 2 points on the RPE scale. Just from possibly even more just from controlling your squat better. Um, for the bench press, it's pretty straightforward. You don't really have an option. Like we have to pause in competition, and especially at this last nationals, I think way too many people missed um, their bench just due to not controlling. In USAPL, we have to wait for two side judges to put their arms down. Once they agree that your arms are locked, your butt is flat, and your heels are flat, then we need the head judge to drop his arm. So you might be, sitting up there up top holding the weight for a while. So you might want to practice holding the weight there. And then once the weight comes down, the bar needs to become motionless. So if you sink or if there's any kind of movement, you're not going to get a press until it stops. So we kind of have no choice but to pause in that sense, and then you get the press, and then you need to wait for the rack command. So for benching, there's 3 points where you're gonna need to practice pausing, and there's not really much there's no way around it if we compete in powerlifting. But kind of for some of the reasons I liked above, practicing those long pauses can just help you become more aware of your bench. Um, Time under tension, like not being afraid of tension, like can kind of help you just embracing like that this is gonna suck and that your setup needs to be solid. Can really help carry over to um, your competition lift. Sometimes increasing your bench press isn't so much about um, like lifting more weight and doing more reps. I mean, it is, but if you can, like with the strength that you have, if you can improve your setup and improve your control, you're gonna add pounds to your bench just from that. Being able to materialize what you can truly do is heavily reliant on uh, your ability to lift your top end maximal third under competition standard. So that's something that I do appreciate about my own bench, is that I feel like my control is down so much that I can predict my thirds accurately, and I don't need to really worry about a technical issue getting in the way. So that is something that I wish to teach and pass down to my people. And it's a process. It's not something that happens overnight, but we can definitely improve at it. And then, finally, leading into the deadlift. So for deadlifts, I think the pause deadlift is probably the least valuable of, like pausing each movement, for a reason that I'm about to read off of my phone here, because it was beautifully stated by a page known as Strength Guide that was reposted by my son, Sean, and my brother, Alberto Nunez. So here we go. Time under tension, the science, TLDR. Purposely slowing down will come at the expense of less reps being performed for that set, potentially indicating inferior muscle growth long term. Lifting with maximal intended velocity during concentric portion of the lift. So that is, when you are coming up out of the hole on squat and pressing on the bench and standing up with the deadlift. Obviously, I mean deadlift is just concentric anyway. It will lead to maximal muscle activation and lead to more reps performed. So, especially on the deadlift, that second point was really kind of hit it right on the head. You don't need to, there's no pausing involved. Just holding the bar at the top, if you want to count that as a pause, sure. You should practice that, and I do have people practice that. It also helps work your grip. But I would rather have someone just perform the lift, how they're going to do it in competition, and do more of it and get better from breaking the bar from the ground and just building that way, versus wasting time kind of just doing pause deadlifts over and over and over and over and over. I do think after a point, like once you have your technique down, like the pause deadlift kind of, if you can maintain your neutrality, right, if you are someone that pulls with a neutral spine, and that can have varying degrees, right? So if my back is normally straight, and then when I get under 650, it starts to round, that's me, you know what I mean? But as long as that doesn't compromise any further, further enough to the point where maybe my lockout doesn't pass due to other technical issues or whatever, or that I can maintain myself off the floor, like once you have that down, there's really no, like, you don't need to practice pausing a lighter weight, doing that a million times. You could pause deadlift can be useful to help somebody find their position if they're newer, but I would rather just work the lift, because if you're doing 8 reps with a deadlift and you don't need to pause it in competition, obviously, except for holding it up top, you're gonna get a lot of time under tension anyway from just doing that lift, right? So and it's easier to quantify like what's being done and what is like leading to a result in progress. If the glutes need to contract X amount of times, that sounded weird, but you get what I'm saying. If a muscle needs to contract X amount of times to equal X amount of progress under X load, right? Relative intensity, whatever. Then, we're going to want to work that and try to push that up as much as we can. A bigger muscle can handle more volume, can handle more work over time. So, just sacrificing that to do pause deadlifts, especially in arguably the most taxing lift, especially, if you pull conventional and, you're smashing pulls from the ground, then you're doing pause deadlifts after, you're probably going to be roasted, and I feel like there needs to be a really good reason for that. And honestly, I think on deadlifts, especially conventional deadlifts, you really don't need to be doing them as much as you probably think you need, or as we might see online. I think pause squats in the off season, obviously pause bench year round, pause squats in the off season, And you know, if you need them, you can do some pause deadlifts. Like, I'm not gonna ever write off a movement completely. Um, I mean, some. Let me take that back. Some I just don't think have any place in a well structured powerlifting program. But I think some movements, you know, there's can always be a scenario where it could help. So if something comes up, and you know, I think a pause deadlift might help, I might put it in. But it's gonna be there has to be a really good reason for it. And you know, once you're in prep, I would ideally, you know, kind of drop those and really just work the movement again. Conventional deadlifts, or sorry, deadlifts in general, concentric only. There's no pausing in the hole or anything like that on your chest or whatever. There's just stand up and then hold it up top. Make sure you're locked out and you're good to go. So again, specificity is the main kind of overarching arcing thing here. Um, you know, pod squats, we have to hit depth, so that's why that's kind of valuable. And then bench press, you have to fucking hold the bar at 3 different points, so you know that it can be useful there. But yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this informative video. Um, I had a theory. What if I recorded one of my, you know, just some Fortnite gameplay and played that on the screen while my, you know, normal audio. So instead of you guys just looking at standard pictures, straight pictures, there'd be actually something mildly entertaining for you to look at. Um, if you get, let me know what you guys think about that. You guys can hashtag whatever you want in the comments below. I appreciate everyone that made it this far, and I'll talk to you guys in the next one. Peace.